Hello, everybody, and welcome to our weekly demo. We are so excited that you are joining us. We're just going to give everybody a few moments to get situated. So now is a great time to grab some water, coffee, and get ready to listen to a great demo. In the meantime, just going to give 2 minutes. Thank you so much. If you are now entering, we are just going to give everybody about 1 more minute to enter into the meeting. And thank you so much for your patience. Really appreciate it. All right, looks like we are ready and set to go. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. We are thrilled that you are here. We have a great demo in store. And at this point, I am going to turn it over to you, Joe.
Sounds great. Thank you, Madison. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today for this talk about AttackIQ as it relates to cyber insurance. And cyber insurance, that's it. That's the title. Who am I and why am I speaking to you about this today? My name is Joe Marino. I work in sales engineering here at AttackIQ. I've been here for about a year and a half or so, but I've spent the better part of 19 years in technology, and most of that in information security, both as a customer and as a vendor here. So I've seen a lot of things related to risk and security, and now also in insurance as well. And when I got the opportunity to take a closer look at cyber insurance and how we work with it as well, I jumped at the opportunity. So what are we going to be talking about today? I have a quick agenda here for you. One is that we're going to go through three main points. First, that cyber insurance is insurance, and the game has also changed. So you know it, but then there are rules that are continuing to change. I'm going to reference a report that recently came out from Forbes about cyber insurance, and spoiler alert, they were right. Point three, how can AttackIQ help? And for that, I'm also going to reference a case study that we recently did with one of our customers and how they were able to use AttackIQ to help with their cyber insurance policy. I'll then lead into an AttackIQ product demo, highlighting certain points that would echo the same points that I was just talking about in the case study and in the report. And then, of course, I'll lead you off here with some learning and leading with AttackIQ, things you can do from here. So let's get right into the first point, that cyber insurance is insurance. So similar to how you would want to insure your home, your vehicle, your property, or even yourself against unforeseen things, cyber insurance companies want to know what it is they're getting themselves into and what the risk is to them of having to pay out when bad things happen. Now, what used to happen is in the very beginning, they would do some annual questionnaires, some assessments, and you would go through these questionnaires and off you go. However, the game has changed, and this will, of course, continue to change. I have my source referenced at the bottom of the screen here. I'm going to reference a few key points from that October 22 report in Forbes, and definitely feel free to read the rest of that report. But things of note here, one is that premiums have absolutely gone up. They've gone up 79% in Q2 2022 over 2021. Best practices and best practices before are now becoming mandatory practices. For example, a solution like EDR, your endpoint detection and response, has been found to be helpful in obtaining coverage. But don't forget your other best practices too. Things like enforcing multi-factor authentication, doing attack preparation, maintaining a healthy backup set, adopting any other security guideline that would apply to you and your industry. So I'm speaking to every one of you because I know you're all coming from different industries and different backgrounds. Find a guideline that works best for you and work with it. So think your ISO, your NIST, your PCI, your HIPAA, whatever works for you and what you're measuring yourself against, go with that. And then the bar to underwriting has also risen, making sure that you get that policy at all. Questions that came before are now becoming audits. What do I mean by that? Because I may or may not have had a small background in audit myself. You now need the proof of those things that you were just saying that you did. So you want to lower that premium and make sure that you get that policy at all. You need to show proof that you're reducing your and your company's risk. Show that you're using that endpoint detection, show that you're using that network-based security control. And of course, one constant is that these rules will continue to change as time goes on. You'll need to be ready to respond to questions about new threat types and how you will respond when they knock on your door, and this will continue to happen over time. What should be at the front of your mind is what steps you're taking to proactively manage your cyber risk and continuously validate at least the basics at all times. Moving on to the next point, did this report come true? Spoiler alert, yes. Let's move on to that case study. So we recently did a case study with a leading biosciences company, which is a customer of AttackIQ. And how did they demonstrate their security control effectiveness to make sure that they keep their policy and even start to reduce some of their premiums using AttackIQ? I have that report referenced here as well. Please feel free to navigate over to that after we finish up here today and have a read through that report. So let's move to that report. What happened here was that the cyber insurance underwriter had threatened to drop coverage if this customer could not demonstrate the effectiveness of their security controls on an annual basis. Anybody else getting deja vu? That's what I was just talking about like a minute and a half ago. Now, this came with a questionnaire ranging in complexity from, do you have endpoint protection and do you have a firewall? Pretty easy stuff. To then the validation and proof of their readiness to respond to a cyber incident with the requirement to provide evidence of the same. Now we're raising the stakes because not only do you have the locks on the doors and windows, but is anybody really trying to hit those controls? And what are you getting back as a result? Are your people, process, technology, or all of those working in tandem to make sure that you're able to appropriately respond to the signals that you get back from those sources? So there's the problem. They need to make sure that they can keep working with that other cyber insurance provider and give them back that evidence. That leads us to my third point here. How can we help? And of course, we did help this other company as well, but we'll talk about how we can do that here. Plain and simple, AttackIQ is a security optimization and decision support platform. We were built for things like this. When you search for AttackIQ, you'll generally find breach and attack simulation, attack automation, things like that. The goal is that you take this information and it helps you to drive decisions based on the results that you get back from those attacks. Now, back to the case study, the customer needed to prove that they had and were using network and endpoint protection. So what they did was they ran assessments. An assessment in terms of AttackIQ is a series of those behaviors. We call them scenarios. Think individual attack behaviors that you bundle together for a particular use case. So they ran those assessments, really starting with something like a baseline, which I have and will show in the demonstration, and then use AttackIQ to exercise those controls. So we have an off-the-shelf assessment template, because we give you lots of those, called Security Controls Baseline, that can be used to test your network and endpoint security controls in a standard and repeatable fashion. We're designed to run safely and scale inside of production environments. One of the biggest benefits you get out of that is that you can provide proof that your controls would respond appropriately and that these types of malicious behaviors would be caught on live production resources. The way we do that is we're never going to run any overtly damaging or harmful behaviors inside of your environment. So all of these things have been designed to be safe to run in production. So when you get the question of, are you going to be able to respond? Well, now you have the evidence, the proof that you ran these things against your production controls. So you know exactly what your response is going to be. Not only can you run this type of content and get back the technical details, you can report back that information as well. That deep content, that broad content, that openness, the open decision support platform also allows you the opportunity to get reporting back out of the platform. And that reporting is designed to be digested by audiences from technical operator to the board of directors. So all of the documentation and evidence of the control validation is easy to extract from the platform, and you can provide that evidence to the appropriate audiences in a matter of clicks. And of course, AttackIQ is a great friend to a company that has invested heavily in defenses, but may not necessarily have the resources, the time to dedicate to full-time red teaming capabilities. AttackIQ provides frequent updates to the content and capabilities and platform to provide those latest malicious tactics, techniques, procedures, all mapped back to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Remember, standardized frameworks are always better, so we've already done that for you. And now your team can learn from the content provided by our dedicated security experts right on the job. So again, we make that very, very easy for you to get in, parse, understand, and then repeat back what really happened to everyone that needs to understand it. Let's lay down a couple of terms here for what AttackIQ is and what it looks like. The AttackIQ platform is, this is a typical deployment that you see in front of you. I always start talking about this right in the center of the screen. That web UI access, that machine that you see sitting right there, that's the machine that you are on right now as you attend this webinar. You'll open up your web browser, or you'll open up some type of command line if you wanted to use our API, and then access the AttackIQ tenancy. That's over there on the right-hand side of the screen, represented in that box with the A in it. That tenant is available, first of all, SaaS, but it can also be on-prem if required, but most of my customers are going to go the SaaS route. That's where we provide all of that content that I was just talking about, the individual behaviors, those scenarios, how they get bundled into those assessments, those off-the-shelf use cases that you pull down and use. And then all of the information reported back goes in there, so you pull back all your reporting there as well. Where do you run the attack scenarios? Those are the agents that you see on the lower right-hand side of the screen, represented, that Windows, Mac, Linux. These agents run on your production resources. And these are very, very lightweight agents. They do not hook into the kernel. They do not provide protective capabilities. All they're essentially doing is checking in with the platform once a minute to ask, do you have any work for me to do in the form of those attack scenarios, or do you have any updates for me? No? Okay, I'll be back in a minute. Once there is work to do in the form of those attack scenarios, let's say you've executed or told the platform that you want to run the security controls baseline, or emulate an attacker group, or emulate a piece of ransomware, those instructions will then be sent over to the agents that you have assigned to it. Those agents will download everything that they need at runtime, stage everything, start to run everything, and then report back whether or not they were successful in doing their job. Was I prevented in this behavior? Maybe I was doing some type of credential harvesting, or I was trying to do privilege escalation. Did I do these things or not? That's all the agent knows. And it reports back all that information and then cleans up after itself. It's never going to leave anything behind. It doesn't leave any files or registry keys or processes. It cleans everything up after itself and goes right back to a steady state. That's one piece of the puzzle, because now you have whether or not you stopped the malicious behaviors. Taking a look at the other side of the screen there, you have this integration manager. This is a very small OVA that we provide, and what it really does is it serves as a proxy into your security stack. So you will issue searches from the platform that say, hey, insert name of solution here, your EDR, your SIM. Did you see these attacks that we just ran inside of your environment? And then pull that information back and place it into the platform. Now what you have is a complete picture of, did I stop these behaviors and did I see these behaviors? And that's what gives us the whole picture of how our security controls are performing with all of these different stimuli that we're throwing at it. So what I'll do now is I'm going to switch my screen over and I'm going to get started with the demonstration. Just give me a couple of seconds here. Get this, move this, get this thing out of my way. Thank you. So where I'll start is I'll start with the content, and then I will start to move into how we can pull that content together for what it is that you need. What you're looking at right here are this series of cards that sit on the screen right now. These are all different attack scenarios. Each of these now representing a different thing that you can do within the platform. If I were concerned, for instance, about, let's say, a particular attacker group and maybe some type of attack tactic, I can quickly and easily filter my way through this content to find exactly what I need. So to do so, I would go over here on the left-hand side of the screen and scroll down a little bit, look at my attack tactics, and I'm concerned in this case about discovery tactics, so finding out more information while they're on the box. And I'm concerned about a particular threat actor group because of my intelligence and what we know inside of our organization. I can look for specific threat actors. I can look for APT34, and that's what I'm looking for here. I can now see all of the different behaviors that I know that this group would have. And again, this is that applied intelligence, the content that we've already curated and given to you right here inside of this platform here. And I can take a look at any of these attack scenarios at any time, take a look at the details of that attack scenario. This scenario description will, just like I said before, we will help you understand what all of these things are doing. So I now have a description of exactly what this scenario is doing. Remember this in the back of your mind, because when we start looking at reports later, you're going to want to be able to explain to anyone that has questions about your methodology and what it is that you did. Look, this is exactly how we were running this attack inside of AttackIQ. You can also set your exact parameters and configure these, customize these exactly the way that you want. You can even go so far as to download the source code if you wanted the exact way that this platform ran this attack on this host at this time. So lots of good visibility here for being able to explain to, again, the operators, to anybody else that needs to understand or audit the types of actions that you're taking. You have everything that you did with the use of the information here in platform. But you may be saying to yourself, that's a lot of stuff. Now, you mentioned, Joe, that I could pull stuff right off the shelf and use it. And yes, you can. Let me show you where. Because we have, as it stands right now, a little over 3,000 different attack scenarios sitting here on the platform. I remove these filters and I go down here and I have over 3,000 attack scenarios in here. But let's make this easier on you and much more standardized as well. I go into my assessments and I go into my template library specifically. And I now take a look over here and I'm able to see, let's take out these graphs for just a moment, because I want to go to my security control validation. I want to move to my first use case here. And my first use case is going to be that baseline that we were just talking about. You may be recognizing some of the icons that are on screen here right now, because we have assessment templates that have also been built specifically around certain products. But let's just start with a baseline, that security controls baseline that I was mentioning earlier, because it's going to take a wide swipe across your environment. I take a look at this one right here, my details. A test. A test is a grouping of scenarios with a label on it. That's all you need to know. That's all it is. But you see, each of these is labeled in a particular way that you would be able to say, oh, this part of the assessment is going to be testing out my endpoint protection. So my EDR, there's my EDR. There's me testing out my EDR to make sure it does what it says on the tin and that it's properly configured to be able to reduce the amount of risk that I have as an organization, and that I can prove back to my cybersecurity insurance underwriter that we are taking the appropriate steps to reduce their level of risk as well. So these are all of the things that are here that we'd be able to run. What do I need to do in order to configure this? I click on details, I click on create assessment, and now I can create an assessment based off of that template that we've already created for you. So I'm going to show you what one of these looks like and the ease of that configuration, because I have one of these already set up for you with some information in it that we can take a closer look at. So this is the same security controls baseline. I just have it named for myself. And then what we do is we can even take a closer look at those scenarios that are contained here within. And I'll take a look at the DLP one so we can see a different one. The scenarios that are part of those tests. And if I wanted to configure these even further, I could configure these, customize these exactly the way that I want to. So we try to make this as easy as possible, nice and menu driven. So then you can go back and take a look at this later and see exactly the way that you ran these. But again, we try to make this very, very easy for you to, in this case, I now have one template that's going to test out a broad range of network and security controls all in one go. And each of these scenarios typically takes a matter of seconds to run. So these are very, very quick and lightweight to run. I choose the assets where I want to run this. Down here, I have my little pencil icon. These assets are the hosts on which you have an agent installed. Now, you wouldn't necessarily install an agent pervasively across your fleet. You wouldn't have to have them on every single box, but you have them on a good representation of your security stack. Think your different offices, your different endpoint policies. And you could even tag these hosts with where they are, or what they're doing, what their purposes are, to make it easier for you to organize your assets and organize your tests. I have these two hosts right here. So I have, I have US and I have my European office as well. And that's what's going to be tested when I run this. As soon as I click that Run Now button, what will happen is those scenarios will begin to execute on those two boxes pretty much at the same time. When I want to run this, I would click this On Demand button, and I can choose to click Run Now. And if I click Run Now, it'll give me this nice little pop-up that says, hey, you're about to trigger alerts in your environment, but we're not going to make any permanent changes. We're not doing any real kind of lasting damage to your environment or anything like that. But we want to trigger alerts. We want to trigger alarms. That's the point. That's what we're doing. We're testing our controls. But if you wanted to make some people aware, maybe you want to make your SOC manager, your SOC lead aware of the fact that, hey, we're about to run these attacks on these hosts right now. This could be your fair and final warning with this file over here that lets you know all of the attacks that you're about to run and where they're going to go. Or maybe you don't, and you want to test your people and process and see if they activate all their call trees properly and stuff like that. So that's all an option for you. Now, what happens once you've run this? And by the way, you can also run this on a scheduled basis. If you've said that, yes, I run this on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, whatever it is, you can set up that schedule so that you can run this exact same assessment on these hosts at these predetermined dates and times, so that now you have that continuous validation. And again, you're providing evidence back that you continue to test this over and over again, and you're not just doing it once and saying, okay, yeah, we're good, and set it and forget it, and that's not how this works. So you continue to test these continuously over time, and that's where you can get that evidence to provide back that says, yes, I'm absolutely doing what I'm supposed to be doing. What do the results look like? Because now you're starting to see some of these nice little color bars that you see on the screen right here. I'm gonna go over to my results, and then we'll start to take that apart. In my results, I now have, and this is a really important graph that you see right here. And this is the same assessment. I'm still using the same one, my security controls baseline. Each of these bars represents an individual run of that assessment. So I ran it, and then we got back our results. The yellow bar here represents my prevention percentage. I prevented 39% of the scenarios that I ran. The gray bar is how much I detected, 14%. And then this green bar right here is kind of the outside of the Venn diagram, the either or, did we stop or see the things that we ran here. And what you want to see is something that looks a little bit more like this, where you have the graph continuing to climb over time. Are you going to get to 100% yellow and gray every time? Mixed bag. It's entirely up to what the expectations and the use case are. Not necessarily everything needs to be stopped all the time, but you need to be able to stop or see the things that are around you. That's why that green bar is important. So I'm at about 81% right now. I definitely still have some work to do. But each of these bars, I could click on at any time and investigate the results contained within. That's what I'll do right now. And I'll show you the deep level of detail that we have so that you can go back and say, yeah, we have all the technical detail that we need to be able to explain to anyone exactly what we did in the methodology that we used to do so. And this is why we feel confident that this control either does work or it doesn't, and it needs some attention. I'll take a look at one of these right here, like this dump SAM hashes with Mimikatz using a volume shadow copy. So I'll grab this one right here, and I can see, just looking at this, I know the scenario name, I know the test that we ran this from, whether or not it was prevented, and two different controls, one control with two different ways of looking at it. Let's take a look at that. So this particular attack, and by the way, if I'm not entirely sure what this attack does, 3 dots up here on the right, and I can take a look at my scenario details, and it will show me exactly, again, what this attack is and is trying to do, keeping you informed all along the way. So what this one is trying to do is, the first thing, it's going to copy data out using a volume shadow copy service so that it has a data source that it can then run its credential harvester Mimikatz using. So the first thing is that it has to copy that data out. And when you look at this first phase, you see it's not prevented, but the entire scenario was prevented. I'll show you how we got there. So this first one was not prevented, the copy data out using a volume shadow copy service. Detail findings, great. That's a nice little summary right there. But what really happened here? The activity details will show me from the perspective of the agent that was running the attack, what happened, what did we do? That we were successful in running this attack or not, and exactly when we did. All of the evidence that I need for that. What it also provides you is my detection details. So what did we find, these mitigation recommendations, that's what I was looking for. How do you stop this thing from happening again? That's something else that you were very concerned about, is how do I make sure that this thing that I saw doesn't happen again? And we give you this contextually for every one of the attack scenarios that we have. So in this case, looking at and making sure that you have the right endpoint security technology installed, that you're disabling access to the volume shadow copy service, or perhaps renaming it. So there's a few different bits of guidance there. The detections and observables, I'm going to get to, because we have these here, but I also want to make sure I get to the second phase where we do these get passwords. This one you see is prevented and detected. Let's expand that a little bit more. My activity details, one more time. I take a look at this, and it is trying to, after it has staged this copy of Mimikatz, it's trying to run it. And it tried to run it, and then it couldn't find the file to be executed. So it was most likely blocked by a security tool marked as prevented. So this gives us the evidence that we tried to run this attack and we got this far in the attack, and then we got stopped by some type of security tool. We're not sure which. The agent has no idea, because that's the integration manager's job, is to query those security tools and find out where it got stopped. All we know here is that we got stopped. Again, same concept applies. My mitigation recommendations: if this were to have not been prevented, what do you do instead? And now you have your detections and observables. I'll talk about this for just a moment. These observables gives you even more information. I'm going to keep going back to the auditability and how much information you have that you can then provide back, as well as where that information is going to go. I'll show you that too, don't worry. So I look at my observables here. This is the exact way that we ran this attack on this host at this time using sticks formatted. And these are objects. You could also call them IOCs, but this is the exact way that we ran this. So if you were to go back and take a look in your detection engineering, did you have the logging set up properly? Did you have the rules set up properly to be able to identify this particular instance of this happening? And we make that easier on you by giving you that integration manager. And then you can take a look inside of your detections. I have two different ways of querying my EDR here, my CrowdStrike, and see, did I stop this thing? So I was able to find a detection here. There would also be a prevention here. So I do have more information related to this particular problem. So I view more details here, and I am able to see that I do have my my Mimikatz log right here. So I was able to find and stop this thing that happened inside of my environment. So that's what the detection details gives you. And this is really me diving deep into the, I'd say, the micro level details of each and every one of these. And that's what you get for every single one of these attack scenarios. So you have all the information that you would need to give back to your operators and say, this is what we did, this is how we did it, and this is the evidence of that. Now, how do you get to some of the more reporting angles of this? So let's take a look at some of the reports that are here, because I do want to get to that. Let me just pop over here one moment. And yes, do I have reports? Absolutely. I have a bunch of these that are already built into the platform. I can do a summary report. I'll start with a detailed report. And then the other one that I really want to show off here is going to be the remediation report. So the detailed report, when I take a look at that one, this is now going to give me, like it says on the tin, a fairly detailed report with definitions of exactly what it is we're talking about. So even if you're not necessarily an AttackIQ expert, this is a nice little glossary for you. A couple of infographics up at the top here will show us what was involved here, what was the scope, and then what the overview was for each of these individual tests. What was stopped, what was seen, what were the percentages, and if there were any applicable technologies here. It will continue to give me a series of mitigation recommendations based on the number of times that that mitigation recommendation could have stopped these scenarios that we were able to successfully run. It does give me an overview of the scenarios. I'm going a little bit fast here because I really want to get to some of these details here. There we go. So my scenario details, again, how did we run this? What were we running? Where were we running it? At what time? So there's lots of really good auditable information here that you can go back and say, here's the proof that we did what we did using this platform. This is super valuable information to be able to give back, especially if you're running this on a regular basis. So we'll do this for every single one of the attack scenarios that you ran and give you whether or not you did not prevent it, or as I move further down the line here, I'll be able to find some here that were prevented. There we go. So there's a few that were prevented. So it gives you the evidence both ways. Now, this is stuff that I could give back to. I could give back to somebody that's looking for the evidence that we did these things. If you're looking for even more information, I could do that too, because I can go right back to my reports and I could get into my remediation report. My remediation report will continue to give me even more information that if somebody is diving in very deeply and wants to see the exact way that we ran things, all of this is again reported right here inside of my remediation report, and it gives all of the recommendations. So all of this is already contained here within the platform, and we make it so easy for you to be able to pull all of this information right out of it. And this is just what's included within, right here within the UI of the platform. There's more reporting that you can do. There's more detailed reporting you can do. There's more dashboarding that you can do. But this is especially good for anyone that's trying to come back and especially audit things like the methodology and what you're doing. This is the exact kind of reporting that you can give them to make sure that they understand that this is what it is that you're doing and this is the evidence that you're taking action on yourself. But there's more, because what I did there was the first use case, the control verification. Are the controls there? But there are other things that they would be looking for. I did make mention of these during the presentation. One of them is, how do you respond to a security incident, maybe an attacker campaign, maybe a piece of ransomware? We can do that here with an AttackIQ. I'm moving over to a different visual right now. We call this an attack graph. these attack graphs are the same scenarios that we were just looking at, but now we organize them using a series of logic that says, let's take a different action based on what happens here in the prevention. This one is based off of attacker group APT29, commonly attributed to a Russian nation state threat actor. And we have a series of these for all different types of APT groups, FIN groups. There's a number of them that are already included here on the platform. I'm using this one as an example. What this does is it goes through these scenarios and provides you this if prevented, if not prevented logic between them. So you can decide where you go next. Since these first two scenarios that are trying to get malware onto a box, either over the network or over the file system, are fairly brittle because they're using binaries, we're going to move on, if prevented, if not prevented, regardless of what happens. But you still want to know whether or not and be able to prove that your controls are working. That's all part of the project here. Next thing that happens is it does this rapid collection of file script, exfiltrate files over HTTP. Notice this little green check mark at the bottom. What happens here is that the prevention of this, if this were to not work, it would end the campaign at that time. But you may be saying to yourself in the back of your mind, well, Joe, if an attacker hits a wall, they're going to move around it. They're going to do something else. I agree with you. They do that all the time. We've made accommodation for that. Let's move over here, bypass UAC, discovery host. So you see we're doing a whole bunch of different types of tactics, techniques, procedures. So again, you'll be able to prove that you're running attacks across the entire life cycle for all of those controls that you have. More evidence. But let's move on to step 8, persistence. Step 8, they will try to establish persistence on a box using a new service. If that does not work, if that gets prevented, oh crud, let me try something else. I'm going to try to establish persistence through a startup folder right over here, step 10. If that does not work, I will try something else. I'll try to establish persistence through a WMI call. And if that doesn't work, then I'm going to get frustrated, give up, and leave. These are, by the way, completely customizable. If I wanted to add in even more persistence techniques and say, well, I want to do another 6 or 7 tries after that, that's totally fine. That's totally supported. All of these are customizable. I can even go as far as to say, I want to emulate the attacker saying, oh man, I got to try something else. And I can put a delay in between these scenarios so it more closely emulates a person thinking of something else and then trying something else. But if any of these attacks were to be successful, not prevented, it goes right back up here to main line and it continues on with credential harvesting. What does that look like once you run it? This is important because when I run this, I not only get the same results that I had before, but I get a really important visual here. One of these being, of course, that I have this histogram that says whether or not I stopped the attack, but I want to see where I stopped the attack. And that's exactly what this gives me. Because I now look at this result and this visual tells me exactly where I was able to stop the attack in the life cycle. The back half of this is not colored in because we stopped the attack right here at the privilege escalation bypass UAC scenario. Some of these were not stopped, and maybe I want to take a closer look at them, but I have all of the same results on the prevention side as well as what I was able to detect. Thank you to my network security control for stopping the binary, but I want to know why my endpoint security control didn't stop that binary. All things that I want to take a look at, and all of this is now evidence that I can take a closer look at and not only fix my own issues, but I can also provide this evidence back to anybody that needs it, like a cyber insurance underwriter. I'm exercising my controls, I'm exercising my platform. I can do this same thing for not only a piece, rather a threat actor and their campaigns, I can do that for a piece of ransomware, which I'm sure a lot of people are trying to get cyber insurance for, is to protect them against ransomware. And they'll probably ask you, what are your responses going to be when you have a piece of ransomware that tries to get in and tries to attack you? We have a number of these emulation plans for different types of ransomware. The same rules apply. And I would be able to see, and this one, I was able to stop the last attack. Am I able to stop this attack? Let's take a look. Uh-oh, I'm starting to see a different result here. So just because I was able to stop that threat actor campaign doesn't necessarily mean I was able to stop this ransomware campaign. So I now know that I have to fix issues that I have inside of, and these were the same hosts that I was using for that threat actor campaign. This piece of malware was able to get all the way through to collecting and encrypting files on my box. I have something that I need to go and take a look at very, very quickly. So it just goes to show that you have that broad set of testing that you'll be able to understand all the pros and cons of the way that you have systems configured and what work needs to be done. And now all of this is fantastic evidence for yourselves and for anybody else that needs to know, especially your cyber insurance underwriter, so that you can give them the peace of mind that you're taking this evidence and doing something with it, making decisions that are going to reduce your risk and their risk. So this is all really, really powerful stuff. And what I did here was show you all things that you could do right off the shelf. None of the stuff that I did here was really custom. All of it was just stuff that you can pull right off the shelf and use as soon as you get set up with AttackIQ. So that was the demonstration of showing you the content, how it gets organized, a couple of ways you can use it, and just some of the super powerful reporting that you have and that you can give back, especially around the area of cybersecurity insurance. Give me one moment. I'm going to get right back to my other scheduled talk track here. I'm going to go right here, go from occurrence. Here we go. And here we go. So now let's go back to learning and leading with AttackIQ, because I've just given you a whole ton of great stuff. And you're probably fired up and say, okay, now where do I go from here? What do I do with it? One of the first things that I want to encourage you to do is to sign yourself up for our Purple Hats conference. It's in just over a month. It's April 6th. We have, it's completely free. Go sign up, purplehats.org. All you need to do is register. Many of the talk tracks there will also have, and those tracks is 5 different tracks, if I remember correctly. And we have a number of industry-leading experts that are coming in to speak. You will have CPEs eligible for a number of these tracks as well. So definitely go and sign up for it. It's our award-winning conference. We absolutely love putting it on. It's a great service back to the community. Outside of that, and we've been doing this for quite some time, we'll continue to do so, is our AttackIQ Academy. AttackIQ Academy provides free, high-quality instructor-led training for the information security community globally. You can see here we do have students all over the globe. These courses, and I may or may not be an instructor myself, will also provide you with CPEs and can give you a broad base of not only things that you can do inside of AttackIQ, but things that you can do even outside of it, things like the fundamentals of purple teaming and threat actor research and emulation, mapping other things in the MITRE ATT&CK framework, even mapping to things like CVEs. These are all fantastic courses that we provide completely free of charge. And there are some courses in here that will allow for a lab. So we will give you some access to some lab resources, and you can take a look at things and start demonstrating those lessons that you're learning inside of AttackIQ directly. Go over to academy.attackiq.com and feel free to sign up. Again, it's academy.attackiq.com. And if you want to take that even a step further and say, well, that's great with the lab stuff, let me try this out with one of my own resources, you can. We have a free trial and try to run some of these emulations for yourself. And you can try AttackIQ for 14 days completely on us. So you can go ahead and sign up for that. You can run some of those emulations. We have a nice little curated set for you that you can run there. And you could just feel free to see what those results would be and how you would stack up. Go over to attackiq.com/free-trial and give that a shot today. Something else, because it feeds right into kind of the source of that as well, and this could be another talking point for you, is the source of all of this content that you're getting is our adversary research team. We absolutely have an industry-leading adversary research team. Our team is a series of security experts, logging experts. These are people that know how to reverse engineer malware, and these are the people that are researching threat actor groups. They're researching malware, they're reversing things, and they are taking that content and curating it, distilling it into things that you can use right off the shelf here at AttackIQ, and we share our writings. So if you go and take a look at the AttackIQ Insights page, and I'll give you a link to our research page, you can see many of the different adversary threat emulation things that we're researching and how we get that content directly into the platform for you. If you want to sign up for our research updates, go over to attackiq.com/research and definitely follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter at AttackIQ. I want to take this time and absolutely thank you for your attendance today, for your attention. I'll take a look. Madison, do we have any questions in the chat box? I've just been so fired up. I haven't looked at the chat box.
I'm not seeing any at this moment, but
Okay.
you can always reach out to us or to Joe personally.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And again, thank you so much for the time you took out today to spend with me going over how we could help you with making sure that you have all the evidence that you need for securing, maintaining, and keeping those cyber insurance premiums as low as possible.